Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. This is Dan from PeoplesTalk Radio. I wanted to get back on that subject we were speaking of with the first video. Didn't really conclude everything. There's a lot of evidence and a lot of information that we've looked at over the years. And, you know, every time I have this conversation with a new person, I kind of cringe. There's so much to go through. And a lot of times you end up backtracking a little bit and running over the same things twice sometimes. So sorry if I do that, but I don't think there's another way of doing this. As many times as I've done it, I think that's just the way it goes. We spoke about the history of Iraq. We spoke about as many facts as we could put together. And we still had some people on the board there. I've seen some of the comments. One of the guys that I actually bumped him off, he wasn't real polite. But what he was saying was, where do you think your facts are? Where's the facts here? There's no facts. What history? And I thought, you know, I don't get that comment. The history is the history of Iraq and what they've been able to accomplish from 1932 until now, or you could even say the last century. Over the last century, Iraq has been over $3 more than half of the last century. In fact, about 65% of the time, over $3. Now we know they're at 280. They were also at 468. But the point is, the history shows us that this country is not only deserves to be at this rate, the rest of the world had to okay it. They don't just get to make their rate whatever they want. No country does. So our dinar is vested in a country with a long history of wealth and success. And that's kind of what I've been trying to bring out in both of these audios. The problem is, and we all know this, but it also has a long history of war, conflict. And right now trying to struggle back from that to be what everybody wants it to be, at least in that region, it is a big struggle. That's one of the reasons we continually think we're close, we're almost over, but there's things that has to be done. But the biggest point I'm trying to elaborate on is the fact that this country has been there. They have the experience, they have the money, they have the finances, they have the wealth. And those are the things we're waiting to come back online. But before we get too deep into this subject, one of the things I always try to remind everyone, and most of you know that if you know me at all, I'm not a lawyer. Gary's not a lawyer. We're not economists. We didn't go to college for this. We did go, we'll call it business school. I had a company internationally for almost 15 years. We were in 14 different countries. We had warehouses in 3 different countries, and we did a lot of business. I became very familiar with banking and finance internationally and business law and business concepts. Gary, even more so. I'll let him speak of his background. But I'm only saying that because we really do want to do this. We want to be able to speak about these things freely and help other people. I think it's the biggest thing we bring to the dinar world is not what we've found out, what we know, but the contacts we have. And us being able to collaborate back and forth with them and really get down to what they believe is going on so we can take that to ourselves and now share that back with you folks. And I think that's real important. But, you know, I tell you, if I came into this thing excited, I was told it was going to be 2 weeks or maybe even today. You better hurry up. And so I quickly did my research over the next 2 or 3 days. Honestly, I thought I was going to lose out because I waited so long. I waited 3 days. And when I found what I found, I won't go into it because we've talked to it in the other piece, but when I found what I found with Iraq and how they were being relieved of debt and countries were forgiving them of these things and all these things were taking place, it just made sense to get involved. But, you know, there was a lot more research that went into it after that. And we did this with the help of a lot of the people we knew in business. And that's when we decided to show it or share it with other folks on People's Talk Radio. And that took off. We've been doing that now for almost 8 years. Now, here's the bottom line. Some people that you speak with, it doesn't matter how many facts you give them, how much evidence that you provide them with. It doesn't matter. No matter what you tell them or show them or prove to them, they're still going to come out at the end of the conversation and say, you know what? You're saying to me that $1,000 can turn into $3 million? You're out of your mind. There's no way. And they won't believe you. There's other people that say, you know, if you really believe this is going to be, you know, come out at $3, you're crazy. I believe it'll be revalued. But it'll be revalued at, say, 1 penny, 2, 3, 4, 5 cents. And that's about all they believe. And those people, I don't know why they don't buy in to begin with, because 4 cents would be 40 times your money. But my point is, we can't worry about what other people think in this investment. It's been said, don't call it an investment. Call it a speculation. You know, it was a speculation when I first got in. When I realized Iraq in much of their past history was over $3, it wasn't a speculation anymore. I wasn't speculating they possibly could get back there. There was a good, strong chance. And then we started looking at some of the interest. What was that, 4 or 5 years ago? A whole tranche of businessmen went over to Iraq. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, obviously. But there were company representatives. There was hedge funds and mutual fund holders that went over representing large companies. And they were going all through Iraq. And I remember them visually going through the rubble, basically climbing over things in these suits. And their end result was they said there's more than one well here of wealth, and they're talking about oil well of wealth. And one of them was Asia being the largest, the only all over the country cell phone provider at that time. And they were talking about the literal tens of billions of dollars that would be made off that in a short period of time. I didn't invest in Asia. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I'm sure you still can even. And it would still be an investment, a good investment. Nigeria, one of the most connected cell phone countries in the world. Much of Africa is, actually. Everybody has cell phones. They don't have computers and iPads. They have cell phones. And it's their full connection. So cell phones over there cell phone businesses are worth much more than in the United States and other countries. I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but we are speaking about the potential wealth and why they have this. You know, I said we were going to talk about Vietnam for a moment, and I will. Ever since I've been in the Iraqi dollar, I've heard people make claims and talk about the Vietnamese dong, how it's going to increase. We've seen some people in dinar land, I won't mention their names. I've done that a lot, but I won't mention their name. They've even told some of their listeners, sell your Iraqi dollar and buy Vietnamese dong. It will revalue at a much higher rate. Well, you know, there was a time when we got involved in this, when we believed the contracts and the speculation of contracts was going to be that Vietnam was going to start drilling. And if they were to start drilling on that rim, the Pacific Rim over there, and the rim of their country, it's said to be one of the most oil-rich platforms anywhere. They expect it to be one of the top 3, 4, 5 producers. And so this prospect for Vietnam going straight through the roof was there. And it still is there for them to have an increase in their worth, in their dollar. But to say that they're going to do that right now is not the same anymore. China challenged that. China said, you're not drilling off the coast there. We believe part of that's our territory. And so they've been in a debate there for a while. So I think if they ever get it, it'll be a partial situation, not a full situation, thanks to China. And who knows who's got the right to it, but it did kind of tell us that that really wasn't happening anytime soon. Now, the reason I bring that up, before the war, a lot of people don't know this, but before the war, Vietnam's dollars, I've heard they were $3. I can't prove that. Again, I'm going to go with what I've seen. They were $2 American money to 1 Vietnamese dong. So they were twice our dollars before the war. And I don't know exactly how long that went, because the article I read wasn't an article that I would trust. It wasn't .gov or an IMF type of a government issue. But it was credible, because I did reveal it was $2 plus, but I don't know how many years. Anyways, why aren't they the same? They both went to war. They both lost everything because of the war. Vietnam was at, say, $2, $3. And not like Iraq being $3+ for many years. But still, for decades, they had this increase in wealth. Why did they have it? You know, they were much like Japan in some ways early on, that their dollars were based off of their GDP, off of their manpower, labor force, off their factories, kind of like Japan. A lot of its high GDP, they were number 2, remember? I mean, we've seen the typhoons and the things that's destroyed that country, but they were in the number 2 for a long time in GDP production next to the United States. That was because of the Toyota brand and what they were doing with cars and what they're exporting to the United States. And Vietnam had a different play. I'm not going to get into that. You can look it up. But their play was still based on labor and production export. What's the difference in that and Iraq? If Iraq had 10 people in the country and no GDP yet, they would be worth hundreds of billions upon trillions of dollars. Why? It's incredible. Their natural gas source alone is probably only equal to what the United States produces. Their oil and their gold is unbelievable. Palm oil, which is also very expensive. The aggregate part of their country is compared to none. I mean, you can say that Saudi Arabia or Iran or some other country has more oil per se, but we're talking value of country, there's none other. So could they be the wealthiest country in the world? Absolutely. Should they be? No, they can't quit fighting. And will they ever be? I don't know. Can they quit fighting? But my point that I'm making is they're going back to where they were because they created this value out of what they hold. It's under their feet. It's not in a factory. It's not being produced. It's not being sold. There's no conditions. People would pay. In fact, people have paid to grab those 10 oil contracts on those 10 oil wells. China and other countries came in and they paid, said, we will give you this much money if you will let us pump it. So now they're buying into a share of that. I'm not going to go into oil credits right now, but it's a strong piece of what's going on with the Iraqi dollar. Probably save that over for the other audio. I don't want to make this a long audio, so I'm trying to kind of watch my minutes here. They went a little over last time. But it's a long story. If you're trying to put these pieces together and you're looking at what the differences are, you really have to separate how Vietnam is different. Will they go back up? I don't know. A lot of people still ask me that. At one point, I do believe they would have went up. And a good friend of ours, I'll just call him Abe. You guys know who we're talking about. He's an attorney, an accountant. And his point of view on that is Vietnam would go up very, very high, greater than the United States dollar. And then we had, he told me I could repeat that, so I'm putting it on the recording. But then we had all this situation with China. Like I said, I haven't talked to him about it since then. Does it change things short term or long term? Will it get rectified somewhere down the road? I still hold Vietnamese dong, and it'll sit in the back of my safe until it's time to be revalued. And if it never does, like the Iraq dollar, I can take it back to the bank and say, I'd like to cash in these dollars. I'd like to take these physical dollars and give them back to you and get my money. Yeah, I wish people would hear that sometimes. There's really very, very little risk. Now, I've heard a guy talk on one of the things somebody sent me, and it kind of annoyed me because he was talking about how it's ridiculous to buy this. You're going to lose 15 to 20% when you cash it in. And those kind of people I'd like to have on the phone with me. Say, I don't want to embarrass you, but you do know that oil, silver, and gold, and every currency on the planet is the same way, right? You act like you're losing money because it's Iraq dollars. You're losing money because it's a foreign currency, and it's a service the bank that doesn't normally deal in that currency gives you. Same thing with silver. If silver is $18 an ounce right now, you think you can go to the store and buy it for $18? No, it's $19.25. If it's $18 and you want to sell it, you think you're going to get $18? No, you probably get $16.50, depending on where you go. Some are lower, some are higher. So it's very common to see a decrease when you exchange some type of a financial instrument. Speaking of financial instruments, one of the things we talked about on the other call, and this is a big controversy with many people, you have these people that are smart. They're actually very intelligent. And they look at the contracts and they try to decipher them and they try to pick them apart. In 13303 and Coalition 39, the law order there does not say what we say it says, someone said. And I've heard that many, many times. And I said, why do you say it's not telling you that? And as they read through it and they tell me what they believe they heard or seen, they're missing the big picture. In this presidential order written by George Bush, which was the last minute before all this stuff happened. Now, see, if it was okay for us to purchase this, if it was okay for us to purchase it, hold it, and cash it in later, equal to an Iraqi citizen, if it was okay, he wouldn't have wrote an order. And so these orders, as you read them, they don't say that United States people, United States citizens, can cash in Iraqi dollars after the war, after it's revalued, and make whatever amount of profit there is due to them. They do say that the United States citizens can act just as an Iraqi citizen, utilizing the financial instruments of the country as their benefit. Now, that's not an exact sentence, but that's almost. And there's other laws that follow that up inside 39 that actually kind of shore that up a little bit and make why it is. It's kind of an unbelievable presidential order because the United States went in as an invading force being told by many other forces to stay out. And then they make this law that whatever we do, we can do. And it's just the only reason they got away with it is because of the power of the United States. Period. They bullied in. They made the law. I'm glad they made the law. I'm holding Iraqi dollar. I'm not worried about that part. But when someone tells us it's not part of the overall process, they're wrong. So anyways, you can see most likely if you're listening to the facts, and you can look them up for yourselves. I didn't bring you pictures or articles. There's one article that was shown, and we'll have a link to that at the bottom of the page, by the way. But you can find all these things, how much this was and how much that was. But, I hope you're trying to find them so that you can become an investor or a speculative watcher like some of us, whatever you want to call yourself. I'm calling myself an investor because it's a really, really advantageous for your family. Some families, if you don't get involved in this, it's okay. I'm not trying to convince people. Ever am I trying to convince people. Even after the last recording, people said, you sound like you're selling it. I'm giving you my reason for getting involved. And in the hopes that if you're holding it, not if you want to buy it, but if you're already holding it, you'll say, you know what, I'm going to wait another minute. This guy made sense to the point that I think we're still in this. So I'm not going to sell it. That's my only thing. If you're in it already, then I didn't convince you. I didn't tell you. I'm just saying, here's my thoughts. And there's a lot of benefit, a lot of profit here to be had. And we do want to talk about this and bring up little bits and pieces. I want to go into the oil credits on the next one. But listen, I hope this has kind of reassured some of the things you're thinking. I know there wasn't a lot of meat here, but you can only do so much in so many minutes. But I hope it's given you some things to think about. And check back with us. We'll have another one up here in the next week or so. Maybe we can get Dr. Todd on here with us and see how that goes. Many of you know who he is. And we're trying anyways. I'd love for him to explain the oil credits. The oil credits are the hinge as to why this actually works. There is the dollar financing that allows Iraq to be able to do these things with that money. But it's not as easy to explain so everybody understands it. Now, we've done it on the calls. But we'll try to get him on there. We'll see how it goes. Either way, have a great afternoon. Hope you enjoyed at least some of this.